Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in our country over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we have a packed agenda of issues to discuss tonight. I want to begin by welcoming all of our viewers who are joining us on television from West Coast Berbice all the way to the end of Region 5. Good evening and welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Across the Berbice River, I want to welcome all of our viewers from Region 6 along the east coast of the Berbice River, Kanji, and the entire Quarantine Coast. Welcome to you to another program of Issues in the News, and I know that you are viewing us on television. I want to also welcome our listeners who are joining us on Facebook, on Freedom Radio. Freedom Radio, good evening and welcome. And Facebook, last but not least, there are tens of thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live across the length and breadth of Guyana, across the Caribbean, Europe, North America, and even further afield. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And we are also streaming live on YouTube. So those of us who are joining us on the YouTube platform, please welcome and thank you for joining us. I want to encourage you to invite all your friends and followers to share this program. Press that share button on your phone so that as many persons as possible can join us in this podcast. Press that share button on your phone. Press that share button on your phone so that as many persons as possible can join us in tonight's program. So once again, we have a packed issue of important matters to discuss. So I want to begin immediately. I see many of you are here already, so I don't want to detain you any longer. I want to go straight into the program. So last Monday, I tabled I read for the first time in the National Assembly the National Intelligence and Security Agency Bill number 2023. And I read with some degree of disappointment the adverse commentary that this bill has received in certain quarters in the press. And I am of the humble view that it is clear that those who are peddling those types of misinformation regarding this bill have not read the bill. You see, sensationalism sells news. So it is very easy to put a sensational headline in a story and to use terminologies that will excite the public attention so as to attract attention to the news item. And I believe, unfortunately, that occurred here. So one or more than one news agency described the bill as a spy bill. I saw comments from the leader of the opposition that he does not support the bill, that it is dictatorial. So I want to spend some time to explain to the members of the public about this bill and to encourage the reading community to read the bill. In particular, our journalists to read the bill. So, firstly, this bill brings into statutory recognition an agency that has already been existing since, I believe, 2010. So the National Intelligence Agency, which the bill establishes, has been in existence since 2010. That's the first thing I want to say. It bore another name. I believe it was called the National Intelligence Council. But it was established since then. And it has been funded from public funds since then. So 13 years or more, this bill, this agency, or this entity has been getting monies from the parliament, and in the Committee of Supply, the allocations of these funds have been explained. You had many persons heading this agency. I have here that it was established by cabinet since 2010. This was since President Bharat Jagdeo was in office. Former Police Commissioner Leslie James and Assistant Commissioner Royston Andrews Jr. were part of the initial persons incorporated into this unit. It was housed for a long time, and I believe it is still being housed, at Castellani House across the street from the office of the President. It continued during the APNU AFC government. Bruce Lovell, a senior officer from the Guyana Defense Force, was heading it during that time, the APNU AFC years in government. I believe he resigned, and then Colonel Omar Khan replaced him as head of this agency. So I say that to remind members of the public, or to inform them that this is nothing new. This agency has been there. What this bill seeks to do is to establish the agency by law, to clearly set out what the agency's powers are, who will constitute the agency, by what mechanism they will be appointed, how the agency will be funded, if there are complaints about the functioning of the agency, which is the forum to which those complaints can be lodged, and who will constitute the forum, that the agency will be funded from public funds, and the accounts of the agency will be audited as part of the accounts of Guyana by the Auditor General, and that an annual report of the agency's work will be laid in the National Assembly. Of course, because of the nature of the functions that the agency is expected to perform, there is some degree of confidentiality because you're dealing with national security. So I am saying to you that for 13 years, this agency has been functioning, performing largely the same functions which are outlined in the bill, but it had no governance structure, it had no statutory framework, and apparently people didn't know about it. Now, this bill seeks to remove that cloak of apparent secrecy and to bring a transparent legal structure into being and to establish an accountable framework in respect of the agency itself and those who will man and comprise the agency, and to say clearly how the agency will be funded, and once it is funded from public funds and its audited accounts are going to be laid in the National Assembly, it shall now become subject to parliamentary oversight. And you are hearing now a barrage of criticism. So, if we were to keep this bill, this agency, in the way that it was, as an ad hoc agency, performing the very functions that it is performing, and had no public scrutiny whatsoever, had no law by which it was governed, so rules could have been changed. Persons dismissed, persons hired in secrecy, rules changed to suit expedient circumstances. And that apparently would have been good. All of that is being removed, and a veil of transparency is now cloaking this bill, and it is evoking criticisms. And that's what I'm saying, that I don't believe that there is a true understanding of what we are transitioning from and what we are transforming here. The government, on the contrary, should be credited, not criticized, for this bill. The bill, and one of the planks of the criticism, is that the bill, that persons are appointed in the bill by the president. Now, this National Intelligence Agency is performing intelligence gathering functions. So you have the Guyana Police Force and you have the Guyana Defense Force. The Guyana Defense Force, part of its function includes gathering of intelligence in relation to national security, border issues, and matters of national sovereignty. That's what the Guyana Defense Force does. The Guyana Police Force deals with intelligence gathering, among other things, in relation to internal security. So you have national and territorial security on the one hand by the GDF, and internal security and intelligence gathering in relation thereto by the Guyana Police Force. There is no agency in the country that collates these two, the intelligence and the information that's being gathered here by these two agencies, examine them, analyze them, and store them in a central place for the country. This is what this agency shall do and has been doing. It is not, first of all, it's not a law enforcement agency. It is an agency that will work along with the two principal disciplinary forces in our country, the Guyana Defense Force and the Guyana Police Force, and will aid them in intelligence gathering. It is not a law enforcement agency. It will not perform law enforcement function. It will assist in the gathering and assemblage, use and analysis of intelligence. That is what it does. And countries across the globe have similar agencies. The government of Guyana did not wake up one morning and decide that we will form this agency. As I said, it has been in existence now for 13 years, and it received the approval and imprimatur of two different governments, the APNU and the PPP. Together, these two parties represent 99% of the population of Guyana. It has received the support of both. And I will deal with Norton comment shortly. And why is the president the minister? The president is the minister because under the gazetted responsibility of the president is or are the defense and territorial integrity of Guyana, the National Intelligence Center, that's the precursor to this agency, the Guyana Defense Force, the Joint Intelligence Coordinating Center, the Central Intelligence Committee, and the Regional Intelligence Committee. These are all gazetted responsibility of the president and agencies that fall under the president. The Constitution of Guyana, Article 197A, says that the state's defense and security policy shall be to defend national independence, preserve the country's sovereignty and integrity, and guarantee normal functioning of institutions and the security of the citizens against an armed aggression. That's the state's duties in relation to national security and defense. And you know who is the person, the principal officer responsible for the discharge of this particular function of the state? No other than the executive president of the country. That is why the president is the subject minister of the Guyana Defense Force. He is the commander-in-chief of the Guyana Defense Force. He is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Guyana. If we are going to set up a national intelligence agency, who logically and officially and constitutionally and legally should be the head of that? Or the minister with responsibility for it? Not the president. To whom do you wish for us to put the ministerial portfolio? There is no other suitable person than the president. But apparently, because the president is the subject minister here, alarm bells are ringing. I heard the criticism also being leveled that the head of this agency is or shall enjoy the same status as the Guyana Defense Force head, the Chief of Staff, and the Guyana Police Force or the Commissioner of the Guyana Police Force. But if this is the National Intelligence Agency, why should this person, the director of this agency, enjoy any lesser standing than these two? When he has to receive information from them, they are his equal partner. Why should he be on a lower rung of the ladder? This is the representative of His Excellency the President. The President appoints the Commissioner of Police, and that has been the position all the time, no problem. The President appoints the Chief of Staff, that has been there from the inception, no problem. But the President appointing this director is a problem. It all has to do with, I don't wish to disrespect anybody by saying a lack of understanding, but it is more paranoia than anything else. And I cannot help saying it's a lack of understanding because persons don't know the history of this matter, they don't know the nature and intricacies of the matter, neither do they know. They haven't read the bill. They haven't read the bill. This agency, in its 13 years' life, has interacted already with almost every country in the Caribbean, the United States, North America, Canada, Europe, and several countries. Have done training with them, have done collaborative workshops with them. So, as this is not a newborn baby, they have relationships, strategic relationships with important counterpart agencies across the hemisphere. It is unfortunate that the bill is coming this late. That should be the criticism. The criticism should be that the bill is coming too late. We have border issues with Venezuela. We still have some outstanding issues, although it is settled, there are still some, occasionally, some troubling signals on the eastern side of our border. And I'm being very careful. We have a migration issue here because of the porous nature of our borders, and that is presenting national security issues in this country. We have a large influx of persons here from all over, and they enter and we don't see them exiting. I am Secretary of the Defense Board. I am a member of the National Intelligence Agency. Not this one. The National Intelligence Committee, sorry. National Intelligence Council, I think is. I am Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. You get all types of information that are important and can affect national security. You are not permitted to divulge them. But you have to act in the best interest of the nation. This country requires an agency of this type on firm legal footing. not an ad hoc agency, a mere bureaucratic administrative entity. We need an agency like this to deal with the issues that I've outlined and the direction in which we are going economically as a country, the growth of the economy, the expansion of our fiscal sector, the expansion of our economy itself requires an agency like this, because more and more as the economy grows, national security and the capability of the state to protect its citizens and to protect assets within the state must proportionately expand and improve. Intelligence gathering has to become institutionalized. And we need agencies like this to execute those tasks. I see Mr. Norton saying that the agency is going to be dictatorial. I don't know what that means. How this agency is dictatorial? The persons are appointed here by the process set out in the law. And the powers that they will enjoy are set out in the Act. And there is a complaint forum and a review body that will review the functioning of this agency and will receive complaints in relation to the functioning of the agency. And that body is called the Intelligence and Security Committee. The Intelligence and Security Committee. Journalists, please go and look at section clause 38 of the bill, and you will see the establishment of an intelligence and security agency comprising of 3 members appointed by the President as follows. 1, a person nominated by the President acting in his own deliberate judgment. 1. 2, a person nominated by the leader of the main opposition party in the National Assembly after consulting with other opposition parties in the National Assembly. And 3, one person nominated by organizations representing civil society. Now, none of the reports in the press refer to this. So you have here a body that will review the functioning of this committee, of this agency. The functions of the committee shall be to review any matter referred to the committee by the President, and the matters that may be reviewed under subsection 1 include matters of policy and administration relating to the agency, complaints by anyone of any acts or omission of the agency, or the misconduct or conduct of the directors. So you have a review tribunal overlooking this agency, comprising of an appointee of the President. And the President could have said, or the drafter could have said here, a person appointed by the President after consulting with the leader of the opposition. It doesn't say so. It says a person nominated by the leader of the main opposition party in the National Assembly after consulting with the other opposition parties. And another person nominated by organizations representing civil society. The drafter could have said here, the President is to appoint after consulting with organizations representing civil society. That power is not given to the President. The leader of the opposition nominates someone to sit there. Civil society nominates someone to sit there. and that's the overarching review body over the agency. Norton has not read this bill. He doesn't know that he has a representative in this bill. Civil society who are criticizing the bill, they don't know that they have a representative here to review the functioning of the very agency that they are complaining against. We have to read, and we must not jump to conclusion. We are an educated people. So I hope we have to do much more explaining of this bill so that people can understand it and we can disarm them of the fear that they have induced onto themselves. I am saying to anyone to write me and point out to me the nefarious, invasive provisions in this bill. And we can debate that. We can write it in the newspapers and I'll reply to them. So we will continue to try as much as we can to explain these matters so that the misinformation that is being peddled out there will either be rejected by the reading population or be neutralized. In conclusion, this is a good bill. It's not a bad bill. I will speak more about this bill a little later. The second issue that I want to address quickly, because time is really running, is the local government election issues. So, the PNC, APNU, do not want to go to the elections. And they made that very clear from the beginning. From the moment local government elections were announced, they began a campaign against these elections. The AFC, to their credit, they recognized that they have no capacity to contest the elections, and in any event, they would have been emaciated at elections. They did the decent thing. I think they made some kind of save face kind of remark about the list not good and so on, and they exited the competition. And that's a good thing. That's a fair way to go out. They made one or two complaints about the list and they throw in the towel. APNU, AFC would like to throw in the towel, but they don't have the courage to do so. Because as I said, they are petrified in relation to what will happen to them when these elections are concluded and the results are declared. So from the inception, they began to raise objections both in and out of GCOM. So the representatives of GCOM began a relentless campaign over a year and a half ago, designed ultimately to prevent the elections from taking place or to stall the elections. So they had a problem with boundaries, they had a problem with constituencies, they had a problem with lists, they had a problem with time in relation to the publication of the lists, they had a problem with the work schedule of GCOM, they had a problem with the employees employed by the commission, and they have managed to delay the elections. The elections were supposed to be last year. They managed to delay the elections by several months. But they were unsuccessful in getting the elections cancelled, because that was their objective, because they don't want to go to the elections. So having lost that battle, outside of GCOM now, they are intensifying their efforts, and what you are reading in the newspapers and what you are hearing them complain about are the concerted efforts by them to stall the elections. Or they realize that they can't stall elections anymore, so they will try now to attempt to derail the elections or to cast aspersions on the integrity of the elections. So when they realize on nomination day they got a huge shock when they witnessed the Red Revolution across the length and breadth of Guyana. Even in their strongholds, they saw the Red Sea, and they can't handle that. So right on nomination day, they realize the magnitude of the trashing that they will get. They saw it graphically. So as a result, they have become as desperate as ever. So they start to magnify issues. So one person, a name is on a list in a PPP constituency. The list was submitted a long time ago. We were preparing for these elections since last year. Our party machinery has been working. So the name of a person was submitted, and the person apparently died in the process. That was discovered, and that became a big issue. If the person died after the name was submitted, what is the issue? In one of the areas that I am responsible for, one of the candidates died. I had to go and withdraw and start the process all over again. So they have, in their areas that were traditionally their stronghold, they have been bullying people and making all types of allegations. I have a letter here written by a school teacher in Linden who is contesting as a candidate for the People's Progressive Party. And this is what she wrote. I am a candidate for the PPPC for the upcoming local government elections. I am a school teacher by profession. In regards to the nomination, I have asked my friends and community members to support me. At all material times, everyone knew that they were signing my backers form that I was running as a candidate for the PPPC. Everyone signed their own signature. I thank all my backers. The issue being highlighted by the APNU activist in Linden about fraud is one that I have no knowledge of. None of the persons highlighted in the post have contacted me with any objections. Everyone signed conscientiously. What they did to this lady, they took the lady's backers form submitted, and they are masquerading it on Facebook, highlighting names that they are saying that the persons, the names here are saying that their names are forged. The lady is telling you that she went around and she got all these people to sign. But the people are not objecting. So they are holding up these backers form. They're circling a couple names, and they are telling you that these names that they have circled are claiming that their names were placed there unlawfully. They're not bringing forward the people. They're not taking the persons to the returning officer. That is what they're doing. It is an act of desperation. An act of desperation. They had, and what they're doing also persons like Carol Joseph, whose reputation is nationally known, and other persons in West Coast Berbice, where they are getting such a thrashing, are becoming extremely desperate. So they are walking around now in Afro-Guyanese communities, going to the homes of those persons who have signed the PPP, who have either supported the PPP or signed the backers form for the PPP candidates, or are now candidates for the PPP, and who were hitherto their supporters, and they are threatening those people, threatening to burn their houses, threatening all manner of deception in order to intimidate those people. And they are managing to get some of them to go and say that they didn't sign. Although those people signed, but the people have to live in the community. So out of fear. So these people are telling you on the one hand that they respect people's freedom of choice, that they are democratic, that they respect a person's right to support a political party of his choice. And when an Afro-Guyanese does it and exercises that right and comes on the side of the PPP, that Afro-Guyanese becomes a stooge and a house slave, and they are terrorized in their communities. And that is why we have established a hotline to receive these complaints, and we are documenting them. We are documenting them because we will not allow this type of bullyism and intimidation to take place in our democratic processes. So you will continue to hear, I see Norton, big headline today, threatens to stop local government elections over widespread forgery. What is the widespread forgery Mr. Norton is talking about? I'll let him go. I welcome, in fact, I encourage him to go to the courts and try to stop the elections. The law permits a period. In this instance, I believe it was about 13 days to complain about list, complain about and to have your lists corrected, and to make objections, etc. It's in the law, Section 46 and 47 of the Local Authority Elections Act. Under those provisions, they were supposed to go to the ROs, the returning officers, and seek to take actions there. The time for that has gone. So I don't know what widespread forgery Norton is talking about. Did he report this widespread forgery to the returning officer? Or they're masquerading on Facebook, fabricating stories and concocting stories? And this brings me to the other important topic that I want to speak on tonight, and that's the report of the Commission of Inquiry. And that is what I'm saying. This report, I spoke about that we are determined as Guyanese and as the government of Guyana to stop, to stamp out bullyism, intimidation, violence, and undemocratic behavior in this country. And this report will go a far way in helping us in that journey. It is already public, and I encourage every single Guyanese to read this report. It reads like a story. It reads like an exciting thriller movie. And issues and the events are fresh in your minds. So when you read it, you'll be able to relate quickly to what they're writing, what is written here. And it is written in commendably simple language, in big print. Get a copy, print it out. It is online, it is in all the WhatsApp chats, it has been sent to the press, it has been sent to the diplomatic community, and tomorrow it will be even more widely disseminated. We will also disseminate and make public the evidence in support or the witness statements that were received from the various persons who testified, because they are not included here. It would have made the report too cumbersome. So and this will be laid in the National Assembly. What is important about this report, and one of the main reasons why this Commission of Inquiry was launched, was to put in permanent form and make part of the permanent record of this country the skullduggery that took place in relation to the March 2nd elections, and who committed those skullduggery, and on whose behalf they were acting. And those matters are clearly recorded in this report. And I encourage you, as I said, to get a copy of it. So I can't read the entire report, but I'll share with you important excerpts. So in the executive summary, there is this passage. It reads this, I quote, "In summary, our inquiry reveals that there were, in fact, shockingly brazen attempts by the Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, Deputy Chief Elections Officer, Roxanne Myers, and Returning Officer Claremont Mingo to derail and corrupt the statutorily prescribed procedure for the counting, ascertaining, and tabulation of votes of the March 2nd elections, as well as the true declaration of the results of that election, and that they did so to put it in unvarnished language of the ordinary man for the purpose of stealing the elections." That is a conclusive finding, that Lowenfield, Myers, and Mingo conspired in the most shocking and brazen way to steal the elections. So that's one very telling passage. And then there is a summary of findings, several pages long. I will just summarize what they say. In this section, we set out a summary of the key findings of the Commission. 1, there was a conscious and deliberate, even brazen effort to violate the provisions of Section 84.1 of ROPA. Section 84.1 is the tabulation, the section that speaks to the collating of the statements of poll with the GCOM statements of poll, or the statements of poll in the RO's possession, with that of the party representatives. The exercise that was going on at Ashman's building was the exercise that was being done under Section 84.1. And here the report is saying that there was a conscious, deliberate, and even brazen effort to violate the provisions of Section 84.1. 2, senior GCOM officials abandoned all need for neutrality and impartiality. Let me repeat. Senior GCOM officials abandoned all need for neutrality and impartiality and demonstrated a bias for a competing political party, and in the course of events over those days showed an open connection with that party and by their efforts sought a desired result for that party. You can't want it in clearer language than this. I know that all of you are saying in your mind that you know that. But a commission of inquiry now has recorded it. So when they tell you that they didn't rig elections or they didn't attempt to rig the elections, we now have a judicial inquiry that has pronounced conclusively on the matter. You know, they're walking around the country claiming that they are the victims of fraud. Well, they had an opportunity to go both to the courts, and they tried to do that and they were thrown out. And they had an opportunity to go to that commission of inquiry and to put out their story. What they did not do so. They refused to go to the commission of inquiry. And those who were summoned and subpoenaed, they said that they invoked their right to silence or right of silence. That is what they did. So they can't turn around now and claim that they were not heard. And they must never be allowed to peddle a narrative that they were the victims of fraud. They had the whole court system to prove their fraud. They have failed abysmally to do so. We put a commission of inquiry in place to give them another opportunity to go and plead their case and present their valid statements of poll. And they failed again to do so. They refused to turn up. You know why? Because they have nothing to prove. They can talk by themselves and among themselves and use violence and thuggery to get through politically. And I have several reports examines the conduct of Keith Lowenfield and Roxanne Myers and Mingo at the various stages, sets out the law and shows by evidence how the laws were violated and how the laws were being frustrated and how the law was being hijacked. All of that is set out here. Listen to what, speaking of Lowenfield, this is what the report says. As the chief elections officer of Guyana, his conduct dealt a deep and pernicious body blow to the integrity of Guyana's electoral system and cherished democratic values, and must justly and forcefully be condemned as the ultimate betrayal of trust reposed in the highest election official in the land by the people of Guyana. Let me read that again. As the chief elections officer of Guyana, his conduct dealt a deep and pernicious blow to the integrity of Guyana's electoral system and cherished democratic values, and must justly and forcefully be condemned as the ultimate betrayal of trust reposed in the highest election official in the land by the Guyanese people. The report is saying that this guy, in whom we all placed our trust as the premier election officer in this land, betrayed our trust in the most pernicious way. That is what this thing is saying. And that is the kind of exposure that we have to ensure happen, so that persons who ever think or may think that they can commit or repeat these kinds of atrocities, they have to think again. These people must be shamed for what they did, as well as we have to continue to discourage others who may think that they can travel this road. And Carol Joseph, name is mentioned here too. Let me see. There's so much here that I want to share with you that it is impossible for me to do it because time doesn't permit. But you will read it for yourself, and you will read the chronicle of events and atrocities perpetrated by the various elections officers in relation to that election. And at every stage of the way, what they attempted to do and how they went about accomplishing it. So I want to encourage you to get a copy of this report and print it out and keep it and read it and reread it and let the younger ones read it and let the older ones read it. It is, as I said, written in the simplest of language. The final issue that I want to speak about is I want to report that last Monday in the National Assembly, 2 names coming from the Appointments Committee were approved to constitute the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission must be constituted before the Judicial Service Commission can be fully constituted and appointed, because the chairman of the Public Service Commission is an ex officio member of the Judicial Service Commission. The Chief Justice has ruled that these commissions must be appointed, the full complements of these commissions must be appointed, that you can't appoint one short. All the members must be present to be appointed before the appointment of the commission is lawful. So we have the 2 names now coming out of the Parliament. Those 2 names have been cleared. We now have to get a consultation taking place between the President and the Leader of the Opposition in relation to 3 members, and 1 member the President is going to select in the exercise of his own deliberate judgment. Once that commission is established, the Judicial Service Commission is automatically established, because the Judicial Service Commission, the names have already been identified. Chancellor and Chief Justice, ex officio, and the 2 other members have already been consulted upon by the President with the Leader of the Opposition, and 1 came from the Parliament already. So those members are there. The only one missing is the chairperson of the Public Service Commission. With the 2 names being cleared by the Parliament Monday, the way is now paved for the early establishment of the Public Service Commission, and then the Judicial Service Commission. So I thought that I'll give that important update, because I know that these commissions have to be appointed. But the bureaucratic parliamentary process now have been completed, and we now have a greater freedom and latitude to proceed to conclude these important appointments. So I want to thank you very much for the hour that you have spent with me. And to wish you an enjoyable evening. And I am not clear sure whether I will be here next week. I hope that I am. But until that time, we shall meet. And please enjoy the rest of the week and stay healthy. I'll see you, God bless, Tuesday coming. Thank you very much.